Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, chapter number 9, titled Brahma's Praise for Creative Energy. Text number 5. Ye tu tvadiya charanam bhujako sagandam. Ye tu tvadiya charanam bhujako sagandam. Jigranti karna vivarai shrutivata nitam. Jigranti karna vivarai shrutivata nitam. Bhaktya grihita charana paraya chatesam. Bhaktya grihita charana paraya chatesam. Napai sinata hridayam buruhat swapumsam. Napai sinata hridayam buruhat swapumsam. Ye tu tvadiya charanam bhujako sagandam. Jigranti karna vivare shrutivata nitam. Bhaktya grihita charana paraya chatesam. Napai sinata hridayam buruhat swapumsa. Ye tu tvadiya charanam bhujako sagandam. Jigranti karna vivare shrutivata nitam. Bhaktya grihita charana paraya chatesam. Napai sinata hridayam buruhat swapumsa. Ye tu tvadiya charanam bhujako sagandam. Jigranti karna vivare shrutivata nitam. Bhaktya grihita charana paraya chatesam. Napai sinata hridayam buruhat swapumsam. Word for word translation. Ye, those who. Tu, but. Tvadiya, your. Charana ambuja, lotus feet. Kosa, inside. Gandham, flavor. Jigranti, smell. Karna vivare, through the channel of the ears. Shruti vatanitam, carried by the air of Vedic sound. Bhaktya, by devotional service. Grihita charana, accepting the lotus feet. Paraya, transcendental. Cha, also. Tesam, for them. Na, never. Apaisi, separate. Nata, O my Lord. Hridaya, heart. Amburuhat, from the lotus of. Sapumsam, of your own devotees. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. O my Lord, persons who smell the aroma of your lotus feet, carried by the air of Vedic sound, through the holes of the ears, accept your devotional service. For them you are never separated from the lotus of their hearts. Purport. For the pure devotee of the Lord, there is nothing beyond the lotus feet of the Lord, and the Lord knows that such devotees do not wish anything more than that. The word too specifically establishes this fact. The Lord also does not wish to be separated from the lotus hearts of those pure devotees. That is the transcendental relationship between the pure devotees and the personality of Godhead. Because the Lord does not wish to separate himself from the hearts of such pure devotees, it is understood that they are specifically dearer than the impersonalists. The relationship of the pure devotees with the Lord develops because of devotional service to the Lord, on the authentic basis of Vedic authority. Such pure devotees are not mundane sentimentalists, but are factually realists, because their activities are supported by the Vedic authorities who have given oral reception to the facts mentioned in the Vedic literatures. The word paraya is very significant. Para Bhakti, or spontaneous love of God, is the basis of an intimate relationship with the Lord. This higher stage of relationship with the Lord can be attained simply by hearing about Him, His name, form, quality, etc., from authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, recited by pure, unalloyed devotees of the Lord. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksulamritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So we're continuing our discussion from the 9th chapter of Canto 3, titled Lord Brahma's Praise for Creative Energy. So Lord Brahma, just after being born, we heard how he did tapasya for 100 years, and now we're seeing, at the end of last chapter we saw he got finally darshan of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and now after getting darshan of the Lord, he's offering a series of very beautiful prayers onto the lotus feet of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So there's a long list of prayers in this chapter, and today we're reading the 5th verse of this chapter. I'll read the translation again. So this is Lord Brahma offering a prayer at the lotus feet of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. O my Lord, persons who smell the aroma of your lotus feet, carried by the air of Vedic sound through the holes of the ears. When I first read this translation, I thought I misread it, or I thought there was a typo, because he is saying, okay, when persons who smell the aroma of your lotus feet, okay, the aroma is being carried by the air of Vedic sound. But they smell it through what? Not through the nose, but they're smelling it through the holes of the ears. So it sounds very, contradictory. How can you smell something through your ears? Well, that's what Lord Brahma is saying. That devotees, they smell the aroma of Krishna's lotus feet, carried by the Vedic literature, carried by the Vedic sound, through the holes of their ears. Accept your devotional service. For them you are never separated from the lotus of their hearts. So in the purport there's 2 paragraphs. In the 2nd paragraph, Prabhupada will discuss about this, how one can get direct experience of the Lord just simply by hearing from the Vedic sources, just by hearing from the Vedic literatures. So because Krishna is absolute, there is no difference between Krishna and Krishna's qualities and Krishna's pastimes. Just like we hear with the holy name. The holy name is non-different from Krishna because Krishna is absolute. So whenever we're chanting Hare Krishna, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath are personally present with us. In Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says, when we chant Hare Krishna, Radha Gopinath are dancing on our tongue. And in one letter, Prabhupada also says that whenever we chant Hare Krishna, we should know that we are seeing Krishna face to face, eye to eye, whenever we chant Hare Krishna. So in the same way, just like we can experience Krishna just by chanting Hare Krishna, hearing and chanting His holy name, so in the same way, Lord Brahma in today's verse is saying, you can also experience the smell, the transcendental smell of Krishna's lotus feet, just simply by hearing from the Shastras. The description of Krishna's lotus feet, His beauty, the transcendental fragrance coming from his lotus feet. So just by hearing from the Shastra, that's just as good as directly being in Krishna's physical presence and smelling his lotus feet. So in the second part of the purport, in today's verse, Prabhupada will discuss about this. That just by hearing Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, one can get all this direct, transcendental spiritual experience of Krishna. So, and in the second line of today's prayer, Lord Brahma is saying that, okay, they hear through the Shastras, then they accept your devotional service, and after accepting your devotional service, they are getting so much bliss and happiness that for them you are never separated from the lotus of their hearts. So, by their service, they get Krishna to sit in the lotus of their hearts, and in this way they're never separated from Krishna. So the second part of the translation, Prabhupada will discuss in the first part of the purport. So I thought we'll just go through it line by line, today's purport, and discuss. Okay, so firstly, Prabhupada is saying in the purport, for the pure devotee of the Lord, there is nothing beyond the lotus feet of the Lord. And the Lord knows that such devotees do not wish anything more than that. So again, another, what a nice way Prabhupada is starting out a purport. He's saying for the pure devotees of the Lord, there is nothing beyond the lotus feet. That's the highest destination, that's their highest goal. If they can just take darshan of the lotus feet of the Lord, if they can just serve the lotus feet of the Lord, then they're just fully satisfied. They don't have any other desire beyond that. Like in the previous chapter, we were seeing how it was mentioned in the translation and purport also. In the class that Ishwar Prabhu was giving, it was mentioned, Prabhupada was explaining that for Krishna, he feels indebted for his devotees, because his devotees, they sacrifice everything, they surrender everything, and they give their mind, body, words, they dedicate their whole lives for Krishna's pleasure, without any single tinge of desire for their own happiness. So when Krishna, he sees his devotees sacrificing everything to serve them, Prabhupada explains that Krishna, he feels indebted to his devotees, and he feels that, I can't do anything in return to repay what my devotees are doing for me. In this way, Prabhupada says that Krishna, he transcendentally feels indebted to his devotees. He genuinely feels that I can't reciprocate. But Prabhupada explains at the same time, Krishna's devotees, they don't hanker for anything in return, and they're just satisfied just by seeing the smile of the Lord. And they just come, take darshan of the Lord, engage in his service, and just by having the opportunity to see Krishna's transcendental beauty, just by having the opportunity to see Krishna's lotus smile, the devotees are fully satisfied, and they don't desire anything else. So Krishna, he understands this, Prabhupada explains. So although Krishna, he feels himself indebted and not able to repay his devotees, still he understands that his devotees, they don't desire anything except to see his lotus smile. So Prabhupada explains that Krishna, he just smiles, and this way he satisfies all the desires of the devotees. In today's verse, in today's purport, Prabhupada is explaining that just like in the previous chapter we saw, devotees are just satisfied by seeing Krishna's lotus face, his beautiful smile. In the same way, devotees are fully satisfied just by seeing Krishna's lotus feet, just by serving Krishna's lotus feet. And for the pure devotee, there's nothing beyond this. There's nothing beyond serving the lotus feet of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. They don't desire anything else. And we see this like recently. We were celebrating the disappearance festival of Haridas Thakur, and just before Haridas Thakur is about to pass away, he requests for a boon from Mahaprabhu. And what was his final wish before he was about to pass away? He said, "My Lord, I can understand that very soon you're going to leave this material world and go back to your spiritual abode, and I don't want to be present after that. I don't want to be present because I can't bear separation for you. Please, make arrangement that I leave my body before you leave this material world and you disappear, because I can't bear separation for you. So you please bless me so I can leave this world before you depart from this world." And the second thing, Haridas Thakur, he asked Mahaprabhu that please grant me this boon, that when I'm leaving my body, I can grasp your lotus feet and I can stare into your lotus face. And while staring into your lotus face, while grasping your lotus feet, I would like to leave my body in this way. And so the next day when Mahaprabhu comes, Haridas Thakur is lying on the floor, it's given, and all the devotees, they're doing kirtan. And Mahaprabhu, he fulfills Haridas Thakur's desire. Haridas Thakur, crying in ecstasy, He's grasping Mahaprabhu's lotus feet to his chest, and with his eyes like bumblebees, he's just drinking in the nectar of Mahaprabhu's lotus face. And in this way, and with his mouth, he's chanting Shri Krishna Chaitanya, Shri Krishna Chaitanya. And in this way, it's mentioned in CC, Haridas Thakur, he leaves his body. So again, we see with the personal example of Namrachar Shil Haridas Thakur. What was his desire? His only desire was that when I'm passing this world, I just want to grasp your lotus face. I just want to stare into your beautiful lotus face. I don't have any other desire. That's all I want. So this is what Prabhupada is saying is the desire of all pure devotees. They're just simply satisfied with serving Krishna. They're just simply satisfied with taking darshan of the Lord's lotus feet, taking darshan of the Lord's lotus smile. And they have no other desire on top of this. And they're just simply satisfied with this. I'll continue with the purport. The word "to" specifically establishes this fact. The Lord also does not wish to be separated from the lotus hearts of those pure devotees. That is the transcendental relationship between the pure devotees and the personality of Godhead. So Prabhupada here is explaining that the devotees by their service, they attract so much of Krishna's mercy attention that Krishna, he fully manifests himself in the hearts of his devotees. And just like pure devotees, they can't bear separation from the Lord. In the same way, the Lord also can't bear separation from his devotees. And the Lord, he makes the hearts of his pure devotees as his permanent place of residence. And when Prabhupada is saying this, it literally means like that, like Krishna is actually residing in the hearts of his devotees. And there's some few pastimes I was remembering in relation to this. And one is of, like in the CC classes, we're hearing the story of one great associate of Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu. His name is Gaudidas Pandit. And it's mentioned in Krishna Lila, Gaudidas Pandit is Subal, one of the famous cowherd boyfriends of Krishna and Balram. And this great devotee of Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Gaudidas Pandit, he had a very famous disciple whose name was Hriday Chaitanya. And it's mentioned that one time, Gaudidas Pandit, he instructed his disciple, Hriday Chaitanya, to make arrangements to celebrate Gaur Purnima festival, to celebrate the appearance day of Mahaprabhu. So this disciple of Gaudidas Pandit, Hriday Chaitanya, he makes lots of arrangements, and he invites different devotees from all around to come and celebrate the appearance day of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then it's mentioned that they have a big kirtan on the bank of the Ganga, celebrating, in honor of Mahaprabhu's appearance. So this disciple, Hriday Chaitanya, he is very ecstatically dancing, singing and dancing along with other devotees on the bank of Ganga in honor of Mahaprabhu's appearance. And it's explained that his kirtan was so ecstatic, he was singing and dancing with so much love and affection, that in the temple nearby, where there were deities of Shri Shri Gaur Nitai, they were so much overcome by the love and the devotion of Hriday Chaitanya that they jumped off the altar and they came onto the bank of the Ganga and they started dancing in the kirtan which was being led by Hriday Chaitanya. And then when Gaudidas Pandit, he comes to the temple and he sees, he's coming to take darshan, and he sees the altar is empty. The deities of Gaur Nitai, they've gone missing. Then when he comes to the bank of the Ganga, he sees that the deities of Gaur Nitai, they were worshipping in the temple, they have come out and they are dancing in the kirtan being led by Hriday Chaitanya. And Gaudidas Pandit, as I was explaining, he is actually none other than Subal in Krishna Lila, so he relates with Krishna Balram on an equal level in friendship, Sakya Ras. So Gaudidas Pandit, in his transfer into ecstasy, he picks up a stick and he starts running after the deities of Gaur Nitai, chasing them. What are you guys doing? You came off the altar, the temple is empty. How come you're coming here and singing and dancing? Get back to the temple, go back onto the altar. So in this way, Gaudidas Pandit, he starts running after the deities of Gaur Nitai, chasing them with a stick. And it's mentioned Shri Shri Gaur Nitai, they were so afraid of Gaudidas Pandit, they started running away. And then what happened? These deities of Shri Shri Gaur Nitai, while they're running away in fear from Gaudidas Pandit, they jump into the heart of Hriday Chaitanya. And they go and merge into, or reside into Hriday Chaitanya's heart. And that's how, before this, his name was something else. After this, Gaudidas Pandit, in so much ecstasy to see the great love and transcendental devotion of his disciple, he names his disciple as Hriday Chaitanya, or one in whose heart Shri Shri Gaur Nitai reside. So when Prabhupada is saying this, that Krishna, he personally resides in the hearts of his devotees and he never wants to be separated from the hearts of his devotees, it literally means like that. And we can see this from this example of Hriday Chaitanya, how the deities, they personally come off the altar, start dancing in ecstasy in the kirtan, and then they personally go and jump into the heart of his devotee. Another story in relation to this I was thinking is of in Ramayana. One time, Mother Sita, Lord Ram, they're seated on the throne, and Hanuman is there also, and Mother Sita and Lord Ram, they're thinking, of all the amazing service Hanuman has done for them. So we should, like all these stories, we can take this, so one thing we can meditate on is how much, Krishna he feels, or how much gratitude Krishna has for the service his devotees do. How much indebted Krishna feels and how much moved Krishna is. So we know that Krishna, he is the most compassionate, most kind. Any little service we do, Krishna, he always remembers. And he feels, as Prabhupada was explaining in previous chapter, he feels eternally indebted to his devotees for all the service they render. So in this mood, Lord Ram and Mother Sita, they were looking upon Hanuman, thinking of how much sacrifice, how much service Hanuman had done for their pleasure. And being so moved by seeing Hanuman, Mother Sita, she wanted to give something in reward to Hanuman out of gratitude for Hanuman's great service. So Mother Sita, she had a nice pearl necklace around his neck, and she takes off that necklace and she gives it to Hanuman as a gift, that Hanuman, you please take this is a gift for you. So personally, the goddess of fortune, Mother Sita, she is personally giving a necklace from her own neck in charity as a gift to Hanuman, out of gratitude for Hanuman's service. And then Hanuman very graciously, he accepts the gift from Mother Sita. And then he sits down. Then something happens that really astonishes all the other devotees and everyone in that assembly. What Hanuman does, he picks up that pearl necklace, and one by one he starts biting and cracking each of the pearls on that necklace. And this pearl necklace, obviously it's the necklace of none other than the consul Lord Ram, the king of Ayodhya. So such a valuable necklace, such a valuable gift. Everyone is just astonished. What is Hanuman doing? He's got such a great valuable gift coming directly from the mother of the universe, Mother Sita, and he's just, just biting into the pearls, breaking and cracking open all the, invaluable jewels that Mother Sita has given. So then one of the devotees, they ask, Hanuman, what are you doing? Why are you biting into the pearl necklace and why are you breaking all the pearls on the necklace? Then Hanuman says, because whatever I keep in my possession, I don't keep anything unless I see Lord Ram in it. Unless something has Lord Ram in it or Mother Sita in it, I don't keep that thing. That's the only thing that has value in my life. So I'm biting into all the pearls to see if Lord Ram and Mother Sita are inside these pearls. And so far, in all the pearls I've bitten into, I haven't seen them. So in this way, I'm trying to find if there's any pearls which have Lord Ram in it. So then, this devotee who was asking this question, he then, kind of like jokingly, sarcastically asks Hanuman, oh really, is that so? Then what about your body? Is Lord Ram, Mother Sita in your body also? Because you said you don't hold anything to your heart if it doesn't have Mother Sita and Lord Ram in it. What about your body? Is Lord Ram, Mother Sita in your body also? How come you're maintaining your body? So like this devotee, he jokingly challenges or asks Hanuman. Then Hanuman says, yes, Lord Ram, Mother Sita, they are actually in my heart, they're in my body. Here, see. And then it's mentioned, Hanuman with his nail, he opens his chest, and in his chest everyone sees Lord Ram and Mother Sita seated inside his heart, seated inside his chest. So that's where that famous painting of Hanuman comes, where he's opening his chest and showing Mother Sita and Lord Ram. And then when everyone sees, they're just completely astonished. And Lord Ram and Mother Sita, they're seated outside also on the throne. And Lord Ram, he feels so much pleased with Hanuman's devotion. And as Prabhupada is mentioning, he feels so indebted to Hanuman for his great ecstatic love that Lord Ram personally, he comes off the throne and he comes and he embraces Hanuman. That Hanuman, you've won me over. Your devotion and love for me has won me over. I am eternally indebted to you. There's nothing I can do to repay your service. So like this, there's so many stories where we see, Prabhupada's words in actual action. How Krishna, he feels so much indebted for his devotee service. So Krishna, he takes track of every single thing we're doing, and this is the nature of Krishna. Even if something is very small and insignificant we're doing, Krishna, he takes that as something very, very big, and he feels very great gratitude and is very moved by whatever service and devotion we're doing. And in one purport actually, in I think the same canto, third canto earlier on, in that famous verse where Uddhava in ecstasy, he's remembering Krishna, the famous verse of Aho Bhakiyam Stana Kalakotam, where Uddhava was remembering the mercy of the Lord. How merciful is my Lord. Putana, she came in disguise to poison my Supreme Lord. She came in disguise to kill my Lord. But in return, what did Krishna do? Because she came in disguise as a gopi or a nurse, Krishna, he gave her the topmost benediction, equal in level with that of Mother Yasoda in the spiritual world. Who can be more compassionate, who can be more kind than my Supreme Lord? That someone is coming to kill him, someone is coming to poison him, but he ignores that, just sees one insignificant good quality and gives her the highest benediction. In that purport to this verse, Prabhupada, he explains that it is the nature of Krishna. Krishna is so kind, Krishna is so compassionate, that it is his inherent nature that he takes something, even the most smallest insignificant service of the jiva, the living entity, he takes that and he blows it up and he gives the highest benediction for the smallest service done. So in this way Prabhupada explains, this is the nature of Krishna. For the smallest service rendered by the devotee, by the jiva, Krishna, he takes that to be so great that he gives the highest benediction. And Prabhupada says, we can see this with the example of Putana. So in this way, we can get this strong faith or confidence or this solace in our heart that yes, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, they appreciate, they very much value every single thing I'm doing. Because sometimes, we'll do a lot of services. Some services other devotees will notice and they'll appreciate, oh Prabhu, you did this very nicely, or Prabhu, yesterday I saw you were doing this, so much sacrifice you did. But a lot of services we'll do in our spiritual lives which no other devotees will notice. Some services we do, other devotees will notice, and we'll get some recognition, some appreciation from others, and that makes us feel good, and that encourages us or gives us inspiration to further continue on in devotional service. That, okay, other devotees are appreciating my service, they're noticing, I'm of some value to the other devotees, I'm some value to the yatra, to the temple, and that inspires us to continue on. But many times, a lot of service we'll do, a lot of things we'll be doing in our spiritual lives, which no one else notices, not a single person notices. But at those times we can remember that Krishna is in our heart and he's keeping track of all those small things we're doing in his service, all those small sacrifices, small steps we're taking towards serving him. Krishna is keeping track, and all those small things we're doing, not only is Krishna keeping track, but Krishna is feeling eternally indebted to every single small step we're taking towards him, and he's feeling great gratitude in his heart. So we can see this with these nice stories of Hriday Chaitanya, of Hanuman, and it's not that Krishna is only in the hearts of these great elevated devotees like Hanuman, Hriday Chaitanya, but he's also in our heart and he's personally present with us, and we can take shelter of him. Another story that comes to mind is of in Servant of Servant, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he explains that after he takes sannyas, Prabhupada, he sends him on a preaching mission. So when Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he takes sannyas, that happens in India, and after taking sannyas, Prabhupada, he sends him off to some particular city in India, that you go to this city, you preach in this area, you make devotees, do some programs, so on and so forth. So Tamal Krishna, he goes off to this particular city in India, he does his preaching, he gets a lot of good results, and then he comes back to meet Prabhupada. Then when he comes back to meet Prabhupada, he takes Prabhupada's darshan, and then he puts forward the results of his preaching mission. That Prabhupada, you sent me to this city to preach, and I went there, I did this program, we had this festival, we had this pandal program, we did this program, so many devotees came, we did this program, so on and so forth. So in this way, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he starts narrating the results of his preaching mission, results of, the task that Prabhupada had given him. And Prabhupada, just by hearing the results of the great success of Tamal Krishna Maharaj's preaching, Prabhupada was, again, just like Krishna, he feels so much gratitude for us doing service unto him. In the same way, the spiritual master, he also feels greatly moved, and his heart also feels greatly overcome by gratitude for his disciples. And many times in Prabhupada's pastimes, we will see Prabhupada, he will be overcome by gratitude for the service and the sacrifice his disciples are making to help him, assist him in fulfilling the desire of his spiritual master, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. So Prabhupada, just by hearing about Tamal Krishna Maharaj's sincere efforts to preach in India, Prabhupada was so moved that Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he writes in his book, Prabhupada, he comes up to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and Prabhupada personally embraces Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And Tamal Krishna Maharaj writes in his book that Prabhupada, he embraces him, puts his head on Tamal Krishna's shoulder, shoulder to shoulder, head to head, like that, and rests his chin on his shoulder. In this way, he embraces him very firmly, Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Not only that, while Prabhupada is embracing Tamal Krishna Maharaj, with his head next to Tamal Krishna Maharaj's head, into Tamal Krishna Maharaj's ears, Prabhupada whispers into his ears that Krishna is in your heart, go and preach, like that. Prabhupada, he instructs to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And, we can just imagine, how would it be like, if we were in Tamal Krishna Maharaj's shoe, what a ecstatic moment that would be, Prabhupada, being so pleased with your service, coming and embracing you, and then instructing straight into your ears, Prabhupada's face is right there next to you, and Prabhupada is whispering into your ears, Krishna is in your heart, go and preach. So this is something we can all remember, because all of us are engaged in outreach work, in preaching, distributing books, and whenever, like I personally try and remember that whenever we go out on Sankirtan, we can always try and remember this instruction of Srila Prabhupada to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, that Krishna is personally present within our heart, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath in our heart, so we don't have to fear anything, we can openly go with fearlessness, with full confidence and boldness, we can go and preach without any fear, understanding that Krishna is in our heart. So that's what Prabhupada was trying to tell Tamal Krishna Maharaj, that Krishna is in your heart, don't have any fear, don't have any reservations, with full confidence, continue on preaching the cult of Mahaprabhu. And we see with the whole amazing life of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, how much service Maharaj did, how much preaching, and how much he expanded Srila Prabhupada's movement. So this is one of the qualities of sannyasis and of preachers of the Lord. Prabhupada writes in Bhagavad Gita that the foremost quality of sannyasis or preachers, outreach workers, book distributors, Sankirtan devotees is fearlessness. And how can we get this fearlessness? Is when we realize that Krishna is personally present within our heart. So if the Supreme Lord is personally present with us at all times, places and circumstances, then what is there to fear? Victory will always be on our side. Just like in Bhagavad Gita, right? Chapter 1, when we're doing Bhakti Shastri, there's this section of chapter 1 which is titled Signs of Victory, where the verses of chapter 1 are describing the different signs which point towards the Pandavas' victory. For example, one sign of victory for the Pandavas is the flag on Arjuna's chariot. On the flag of Arjuna's chariot is Hanuman. So Hanuman is on Arjuna's side, so how can, the Pandavas lose? Another sign of victory is the transcendental conch shells, which shatter the hearts of the sons of Dhritarashtra. Another sign of victory is the horses, divine horses given to Arjuna, the chariot given by the demigods. Krishna himself is seated next to Arjuna, and because Krishna is there, naturally the goddess of fortune will also be present along with Arjuna. So in this way, there's so many signs of victory given in the first chapter, indicating that the Pandavas will be successful, the Pandavas will be victorious. So in the same way, when we go out for preaching, book distribution, Harinam Sankirtan, we can try and understand that just like there's so many signs of victory for Arjuna, in the same way there's so many signs of victory for us. We understand from this purport that Radha Gopinath personally present with us, Tulsi Marani is also around our neck, we have Tilak on, and Srila Prabhupada, the Acharyas, the Parampara. Prabhupada explains that whenever the instructions of the spiritual master are non-different from the physical presence of the spiritual master. So while we're going out to distribute books, while we're going out on Sankirtan, we're remembering, okay, this service is pleasing to Prabhupada. Prabhupada wanted his books to be distributed. Prabhupada wanted us, Mahaprabhu wanted us, Yarideko, Tariko, Krishna Upadesh. When we're remembering these instructions of Mahaprabhu, when we're remembering these instructions of Prabhupada while we're doing the service, then that's just as good as being in the physical association of Mahaprabhu. That's just as good as being in the physical association with Srila Prabhupada. So not only is Krishna present with us, but Mahaprabhu is present with us. The Acharyas, Srila Prabhupada is present with us, Tulsi Maharani is present with us. In this way, also just like when Arjuna is going out to battle, there's so many signs of victory. In the same way, when we're going out to battle with the illusory energy, with the demoniac civilization, when we're going out for preaching, distributing books, Harinam Sankirtan, in the same way, there's so many signs of victory, pointing towards our success, pointing towards our victory over the illusory energy. So in this way, understanding this, meditating on this, we can also be fearless when we go out on Sankirtan. I'll continue on with the purports. It is understood that they are specifically dearer than the impersonalists. So Prabhupada is talking about these devotees who keep Krishna in their heart. The relationship of the pure devotees with the Lord develops because of the devotional service to the Lord on the authentic basis of Vedic authority. Okay, so here Prabhupada is explaining how can we deepen our relationship with Krishna. Prabhupada is writing, our relationship will slowly become deeper and deeper in proportion to the service we're rendering. And this service should be rendered in line with the Shastras. So it can't be something concocted, it has to be in line with the Shastras. Like that verse is there, right? Prabhupada would always quote, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatrigam Vidim Vina, that if we're doing service, but that service isn't in line with the Shruti and the Smriti, isn't in line with the Vedic scriptures, then the end result of that service will be that it will just simply create a disturbance in the society of the devotees. So the opposite effect will be there. Instead of being a source of pleasure for other devotees, instead of being a source of pleasure for Shri Radha Gopinath, if we do service not in line with the Shastras, then it will just, the Shastras explains, it will just create a disturbance in the society of the devotees. Such pure devotees are not mundane sentimentalists, but are factually realists because their activities are supported by the Vedic authorities who have given oral reception to the facts mentioned in the Vedic literatures. So lastly, in this paragraph, Prabhupada is explaining that these great devotees of the Lord who are keeping Krishna within their hearts, they're not just some mundane sentimentalists, but actually they're the greatest scholars, they're the greatest Vedic authorities. And this is something Prabhupada, he explains in that same chapter of the disappearance of Haridas Thakur in CC. At the end of that chapter, it's explained that not only was Haridas Thakur the topmost devotee, the crest jewel of all devotees, not only was Haridas Thakur Namacharya, not only was his love so great for the Supreme Lord, but Krishnaraj Kaviraj Goswami explains, Haridas Thakur was also a topmost scholar amongst all the devotees. And in the purport, Prabhupada, he further elaborates on this. And Prabhupada explains that what is the qualification to be a scholar? Prabhupada explains a true scholar is one who understands how to get out of material existence. A true scholar is one who understands or is expert in the science of how to escape the bondage of material existence and to go home back to the spiritual world. Anyone who understands the science of the process of escaping this material world and going back to the spiritual world, he is considered to be the most intelligent, he is considered to be the true scholar. So in this sense, Prabhupada is explaining, that's why Haridas Thakur is dubbed as a very great scholar also, because he understands that the science to escape this material world is by taking shelter of the holy name. So in this way, Prabhupada, he writes in CC this nice angle of who is said to be intelligent, who is said to be a true scholar. A true scholar is one who understands the science of bhakti. They might not know so many slokas and verses, or might not be so philosophically intact in comparison to other mundane scholars, but if they simply understand the process of bhakti, how to practice bhakti, then they're considered to be the topmost scholar. But nevertheless, still that doesn't mean that all devotees, they just have bhakti, but they don't have, externally so much philosophical knowledge. No, we see that in our disciplic succession, all of our acharyas, or so many of our acharyas, they were such great big scholars, like Srila Prabhupada himself. How many books, has Srila Prabhupada written, translated, that even mundane scholars, they're simply astonished how someone just in 10 years could translate so many Sanskrit verses and write so many books. So even mundane scholars, professors at universities, They're completely astonished by Srila Prabhupada's books, by how much Srila Prabhupada translated and wrote. With Prabhupada's spiritual master, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, again we know his story, how great of a scholar he was. That Mayavadis, when he would walk the street, and Mayavadis they would see, they would immediately run away in fear. Because they will know that if he sees us, if this particular Vaishnava sannyasi, he was known as the Simha Guru, the lion-like Guru. They knew that if he catches us, if he gets into an argument with us, he's just going to smash us and he's just going to put us to shame in front of the public. So whenever any Mayavadis and personalists, they would see Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, they would immediately run away, try to escape his glance. Because they knew if once he catches us, he's just going to smash us and, embarrass us in front of everyone else. So he himself was such a great exalted scholar, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Same with Bhaktivinoda Thakur, we're hearing about his pastimes recently from Ishwareshwar Prabhu during his appearance day. How, at night time, right, he used to wake up at 10 o'clock from 10 to 4 in the morning, right, for like 6 hours at night. He used to write books and so many poems. And if you look at his works, he's written so many amazing poems and books, and such deep philosophy is revealed. So again, we can see with the life story of all of our great acharyas that they weren't just mundane sentimentalists, but they were such great scholars that everyone in the society during that time, they looked up to them in awe and reverence. This person is such a great scholar, he's so knowledgeable, So everyone was looking at him in great awe and reverence. Especially Srila Prabhupada explains that Srila Jiva Goswami, in one lecture Prabhupada writes or speaks that Srila, like in the history of this universe, in the history of planet Earth, there is no greater scholar than Jiva Goswami. His scholarly abilities surpasses all other great scholars in the history of this earth. How so? Prabhupada explains that Srila Jiva Goswami, he has written 400,000 verses, Sanskrit verses, in line with the Shastras. And it's explained that this was one of the unique contributions of Srila Jiva Goswami. How he so solidly established the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, the philosophy of Mahaprabhu, the philosophy of the Goswamis. Jiva Goswami, he put into writing, being backed by so many different Puranas and different Shastras. So he studied all the different Shastras, he quoted different verses from here and there, backing and establishing the complete philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this was one of the unique contributions of Jiva Goswami. It's explained that he also established like a library where he stored and preserved the literature of all the great acharyas, of all the different Goswamis, all the great associates of Mahaprabhu. He personally stored and kept all of these books and literatures of all the personal associates of Mahaprabhu in this library. And he personally himself wrote another 400,000 verses. So this Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita has 700 verses. Bhagavatam, which we're reading now, has 18,000 verses. Mahabharata has 100,000 verses. But Jiva Goswami, he himself personally wrote 400,000 verses. So it's completely inconceivable to us, how someone could write so many verses. And at the same time, it's explained after the disappearance of Mahaprabhu, his personal associates, the other Goswamis, Jiva Goswami, he became like the head of all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. So naturally, if he's like the head of all the other Gaudiya Vaishnavas, everyone will be coming to him with all the problems. Everyone will be coming to him to get his advice, how we should do this, how we should do that. So many devotees will be coming to him for practical advice to how to manage different things. So alongside managing all the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, doing all these managerial duties, at the same time, on top of that, he was composing and writing so many beautiful books, composing 400,000 verses. So when we study the life of these acharyas, it's completely, mind-blowing for us, inconceivable how someone can do all these things in 24 hours, write all these books, compose these verses, manage, establish this, establish that. So this is one of the, Prabhupada writes actually in one purport that just like Krishna's activities are inconceivable in the same way, Krishna, he empowers his devotees to also do inconceivable things by his mercy. Like Hanuman, Prabhupada, he explains that Lord Ram, when he wanted to go to Lanka, what did Lord Ram do? He had to physically construct a bridge made out of stones. But when Hanuman, he wanted to go to Lanka, he just took one leap, one jump, and he immediately crossed to Lanka. So in this way, Prabhupada, he explains in 9th canto that Krishna, he empowers his devotees to do even greater service than him. So just like Krishna does inconceivable things, Krishna, he also empowers his devotees to do inconceivable things. In Prabhupada, he also explains that just like Krishna is all attractive, being in possession of all the opulence, Krishna, he has the name Krishna, which means all attractive. So in the same way, Prabhupada explains that not only is Krishna all attractive, but Krishna's devotees, being empowered by Krishna, they also become all attractive. Krishna, he empowers them with all the opulences, so much so that everyone in society, they get immediately attracted to his devotees. His devotees also become all attractive. Both the devotees, non-devotees, the kaimis, the jnanis, the yogis, the atheists, the demons, everyone becomes attracted to a devotee. Like we see with Narad Muni. Not only does he go and establish friendship with demigods, with a hunter like, who was hunter? Mrigari, but also he establishes friendships with great demons. He was advising great demons like Kamsa. So, even great demons like Kamsa and other demons, they had so much faith and they were so much having a friendly relation with Narad Muni that they would, not only would they hear Narad Muni out, but they would, very to their heart, they would take whatever Narad Muni was saying. So Narad Muni, he had that kind of relationship, that everyone was attracted to Narad Muni, just like everyone's attracted to Krishna. So in the same way, Prabhupada explains that Krishna makes his devotee also all attractive, that everyone becomes attracted to him. Okay, now we'll finish off with the last paragraph. So the word paraya is very significant. Para bhakti, or spontaneous love of God, is the basis of an intimate relationship with the Lord. This higher stage of relationship with the Lord can be attained simply by hearing about Him, His name, form, quality, etc. from authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, recited by pure, unalloyed devotees of the Lord. So finally, in this second section of today's purport, Prabhupada is explaining that this para bhakti, or spontaneous love of Godhead, this higher stage of relationship, bhakti, towards Sri Sri Radha Gopinath, one can attain simply by the process of hearing. From what? From authentic sources like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And when I was reading this, I was remembering one section of second canto where this is discussed by Parikshit Maharaj, which is very similar to today's translation and purport. So I'll read this. Parikshit Maharaj is explaining the same thing, how if we just simply give oral reception to Srimad Bhagavatam, how Krishna will personally come, reside within our hearts, and this way we will get a very intimate relationship with Sri Sri Radha Gopinath. So this is second canto, chapter 8, text number 4, and this is spoken by Parikshit Maharaj. Shrinvata shradaya nityam grinatascha swachestitam kalena nati dirgena bhagavan visate hridi. Persons who hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly are always taking the matter very seriously will have the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, manifested in their hearts within a short time. So we're hearing in today's translation how the pure devotees, they have kept Krishna within the hearts. So how can we also keep Krishna within the hearts? Parikshit Maharaj is saying, if we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, how? He says, Shrinvata, you hear Bhagavatam with Shraddhaya, with faith, devotion, Nityam, regularly, day in and day out. We have to hear Srimad Bhagavatam with great faith. The third thing he mentioned is Grinatascha swachestitam. Swachestitam means seriously by one's own endeavor. So Prabhupada in the purport explains that it's not just enough to, okay, it's good that every day we hear Bhagavatam, we attend Bhagavatam class, or we study Bhagavatam, but on top of that, we should be hearing with faith, Shraddhaya, and on top of that, Parikshit Maharaj is explaining swachestitam. With our own endeavor, we should try to study it very seriously. Prabhupada is explaining in the word for word and in the purport. So study it very seriously by one's own endeavor means that when we read Bhagavatam, we also need to put that extra endeavor from our own side to make notes, underline key points, to contemplate on what we're reading, what was Prabhupada saying in this section Bhagavatam, what was Sukadeva Goswami trying to say here, what was Brahma trying to say here. So in this way, when we're reading or attending classes, Prabhupada is explaining, we should study it very seriously. Studying it very seriously means just like at school, someone will be considered a serious student if he very attentively listens to teacher, takes notes, goes home, revises those notes. Then if a student is doing that, then you would consider him as a serious student, Or this student is taking notes, he's underlining, he's remembering, revising, so much effort he's putting in. So in the same way Prabhupada is explaining, by one's own endeavor, one should study Bhagavatam seriously. So just like at school and university, we put that extra endeavor to study, revise, memorize. In the same way Prabhupada is explaining, we should put that same endeavor to study Srimad Bhagavatam. Memorize verses, memorize purports, try and understand the concepts of Srimad Bhagavatam. If we do this, put that little extra effort to study Bhagavatam, what will happen? Parikshit Maharaj was saying, then Krishna will come and sit within our hearts. So all this can be achieved just by hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Then the next verse, text 5, he says, Pravista karna randrena swanam bhava sororuham dhunoti samalam Krishna salilasya yatha sharat. The sound incarnation of Lord Krishna, the Supreme Soul, i.e. Srimad Bhagavatam, enters into the heart of a self-realized devotee, sits on the lotus flower of his loving relationship, and thus cleanses the dust of material association, such as lust, anger, and hankering. Thus it acts like autumnal rains upon pools of muddy water. So this verse again is, even more nectarian than the previous verse we read. Here Parikshit Maharaj gives a very beautiful example. Analogy. He's explaining that, okay, you hear Srimad Bhagavatam regularly, day in, day out, you study it seriously, you try and hear it seriously with faith, then what will happen? Srimad Bhagavatam will personally enter through your ears and go into your heart, and Krishna personally will manifest within your heart, and Krishna personally will sit within the lotus flower within our hearts. Then what will happen? All the anarthas which are in our heart, like lust, anger, greed, envy, all these anarthas, by the presence of Krishna, as we hear Krishna Surya, Maya hoy andikar, Yahan Krishna, Tarar nahi Maya adhikar. That Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like darkness. Wherever there is Krishna, there is no darkness. So when the Krishna sun, when the son of Srimad Bhagavatam enters into our hearts and sits on the lotus flower of our hearts, then immediately all these darkness, these anarthas within our hearts, they immediately get dissipated. And the analogies Parikshit Maharaj is using is just like during the autumn season. Like we read Krishna book, there's one beautiful description of the rainy season, autumn season. During the rainy season, so much rain will come that everything will become very muddy. All the rivers, the lakes, they'll be full of mud and so much debris, leaves and branches and so on and so forth. But then after the rainy season, it's explained in Krishna book, the autumn season will come. And what's the symptoms of the autumn season? Symptom of the autumn season is that in general the sky will start clearing up, the rain clouds of the rainy season will go away, and the sun will become very prominent. And there'll be rain, but the rain won't be like the rainy season, like full-on, non-stop rain, just flooding everything, muddying everything. So in autumn season, there'll be occasional rain, little rain, and it won't be heavy rain. And there'll be a lot of sunshine, and due to the sunshine, all those riverbanks, they'll start slowly drying up. And due to little bits of autumnal rain, as Parikshit Maharaj is saying, in combination with the sun and the little occasional gentle rain coming during the autumn season, by the combined forces of these two things, all the muddied rivers, the muddied lakes, and muddied ponds, they will all start clearing up. And they'll all start becoming crystal clear. So during the rainy season, everything will be very, very muddy and dirty looking, but it's mentioned the symptom of the autumn season is that all the reservoirs of water, they'll start clearing up and everything will become crystal clear. So that's the example Parikshit Maharaj is using. Just like during the autumn season, everything becomes crystal clear. Everything looks so beautiful and fresh, all the lakes, the rivers and the ponds. In the same way, our hearts will also become crystal clear when we invite Srimad Bhagavatam into our hearts. In the purport to this verse, Prabhupada, he further extends this analogy by explaining the difference between Bhakti Yoga and other processes. Prabhupada explains that by Bhakti Yoga, not only does one himself clear his own hearts, not only does one liberate himself, clear his own hearts of the anarthas, but also he goes out and is able to help and save so many other conditioned souls from the clutches of Maya and the illusory energy. But Prabhupada explains, with the other process of yoga, at best they can only help themselves. So at best a Jnana Yogi, he can liberate himself. At best a Astanga Yogi, he can liberate himself. And Prabhupada writes that this is one of the major difference between bhakti yogis and the other yogis. The other yogis, at best, they can just liberate themselves, whereas a bhakti yogi, not only does he liberate himself, but he is able to liberate so many other countless jivas. So much so, Prabhupada explains that a potency of a devotee can be so great that just one devotee, Prabhupada writes, is enough to liberate a whole universe. So in this way, Prabhupada establishes the supremacy of bhakti. Bhakti is so great and powerful that what to speak of a devotee liberating himself like the other yogis. Not only does he liberate himself, but by the strength of his bhakti, he can liberate the countless jivas in the entire universe created by Vishnu. And the example Prabhupada gives is just like the scientists or chemical engineers. They have some chemicals, and if they put these chemicals in the water, they can clear up a muddy tank. So let's say you have a small tank of water, a small well of water, and it's covered with a lot of debris, mud, and filth. And scientists, chemical engineers, they have some chemicals they can put into that small well of water, that small tank of water, and the chemical will immediately, by some chemical reaction, clear up the water. All the filth and the dirt, they will go down to the bottom, and the water will become crystal clear. But Prabhupada explains, by these mechanical means of these chemical engineers, scientists, they can at best do this only with a small well or a small tank of water. They can't put these chemicals into a great river. They can't clear up a whole river. They can't clear up a whole lake or a whole pond. They can only do it with a small well of water. So in the same way, these yogis, at best, they can just help themselves, but they can't help others. Whereas devotees, they're like the nature, the autumn season, which not only cleans up small ponds, but is able to clean up great, great rivers and great, great lakes of water, which have so much volumes of water. Second thing Prabhupada explains is that we were saying that these Ashtanga yogis, Jnana yogis, they can only liberate themselves, but they can't help others. Prabhupada explains, even talking about that, strictly speaking, actually they can't even help themselves. Actually, the perfection they attain is actually temporary, because they go, merge into the impersonal Brahman, but after some time, again they fall down. So actually, Prabhupada explains, strictly speaking, these Ashtanga yogis, these Jnana yogis, not only are they unable to help others, but actually they're unable to help themselves also. Temporarily, they go and liberate themselves, they merge into impersonal Brahman, but after some time, they fall back down again. So technically speaking, Prabhupada explains, they're unable to help themselves also. And in relation to analogy, Prabhupada explains that these chemical engineers, they put some chemicals into a small tank of water or a small well of water, and temporarily speaking, due to some chemical reaction, all the mud and the filth, they sediment and they go to the bottom of the well. But again, after some time, due to some agitation, all the mud and the filth that has settled down will again come up and again untidy the well of water, untidy the tank. So in this way, Prabhupada explains that the solution of these chemical engineers, these scientists, is temporary. For some time, they clear up the small pond of water or a small tank of water, but again, all these filth will come back up. So in the same way, Prabhupada explains that these Jnana yogis, Ashtanga yogis, their process is like that. Firstly, they can't help others, they can't liberate others, and secondly, the so-called liberation they attain, that's also temporary. They go merge into impersonal Brahman, but after some time, being dissatisfied with no Sevananda, they again fall back down to material world. Okay, it's 9 o'clock, we'll stop here. Gantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Jai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bol.